it kind of helped them advance. I mean, do you think this was a conspiracy?
Gotta go with Jacob Putter. Gotta go
No,
lefty.
we're talking about the players. That's tournament champion into the podcast.
There he is, right there.
Oh, he doesn't even know how to watch. Go to youtube.com and search Down Lane Podcast.
Try that again. Welcome to Down Lane Podcast. We are now streaming live from the lab at Town and Country Lanes. Since none of you know what the heck I'm talking about, we were not. I just did the whole intro, and we were not live at all. So, I'm your host, Kyle Haines, and with me is the producer, Austin Van Buren, because Anthony ran off.
The assistant is fixing a water leak.
Yes, the assistant to the host, Anthony Scaccia, is not in the room because he's searching for water, needs a flashlight.
Sounds like it's all downhill. And at the bottom of the hill, they'll find water.
Or in the well or whatever. Yeah. So, sorry, we were a couple minutes late here. So, big show tonight. We've got Verity Crawley on the show. She is in the waiting room waiting to come on. So, I guess without further ado, no reason to... don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell to get alerts from the channel. Email us at downlanepod@gmail.com. What else do I normally say? Oh, if you can't watch live, you can always download and listen via your favorite podcast service. So, here we are. Now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring in two-time PWBA champion, Verity Crawley.
Oh, that is the wrong one.
How about use applause this time?
There we go.
Everything is going horribly. Let's bring her in. Hey, there she is.
Hello. Thanks for having me. It sounds like you're not very excited by the music choice there.
Everything is going wrong today.
Maybe
Anthony
you
had
should
to
play
leave.
it again and I'll exit.
When we have Anthony leave the studio, everything falls apart. It's crazy because he doesn't do much.
No.
But it is odd how it works.
Yeah. So, well, thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. I know you have a busy schedule, so much appreciated.
Yeah, no worries. I know it's been a long time in the planning, so I'm glad we finally made it happen.
Yeah, I appreciate you responding. You know, all these other pros, they're too big for their britches. I email them and they call them, whatever. You know, they don't want to come on. It's no big deal. You know, but Verity, she was there.
Do you think the problem is us?
Could be.
No comment. I'll let you know at the end of the episode.
All right, sounds good. So let us just get right into it. For many people that want to learn about you or don't know much about you, tell us where you're from or where you're from now, or a little bit about yourself. As far as I know,
well, hopefully everybody already knows from the previous 103 podcasts that I tend to do.
Right.
And hopefully everyone already follows me on social media, so they know. But brief background: started bowling when I was 5, born and raised in England. Lived in England until I was 18, and then I moved to the US to study at university. There is no collegiate bowling in England, so I'd kind of not reached my limit within the country, but I felt like if I wanted to take my game to the next level, it was kind of an opportunity that I couldn't say no to. At that time, there'd been a few bowlers from the UK who had moved to the US to try this whole collegiate bowling scene, but it was still decently new. It wasn't really known about very much. So I had the opportunity to move, and I've never really left since, to be honest. I graduated in 2016. I bowled for 4 years at Weber International University. And then after graduation, I took a year to work, mainly because of visas and to see whether I wanted to bowl professionally. I've never had these hopes and dreams of one day being a professional bowler like a lot of the pros have. I didn't even know it was a thing, I'll be honest. All I ever wanted to do was bowl for Team England. That was always my goal as a young kid. So professional bowling, I didn't even really know about. So after I graduated, it was more like, what is this? Like, fortunately, the women's tour was around. So I had the opportunity to bowl in some professional events. I bowled maybe 3 or 4 events that year in 2016, and I loved it. So I then decided that I was going to go pro, which again, we'll talk about that later now with the new PWBA changes. But I decided to try the tour, right? To give myself a year where I bowl full time on the women's tour. And kind of see how I do. With that, I was working. I didn't feel like I would be able to just bowl full time, right? The women's tour, primarily just a tour built to bowl during the summer, to have some events to bowl. And I hadn't, again, had these hopes and dreams of being a full-time bowler. So I was working at the time. I took a job in Savannah, Georgia as an assistant coach for the men's and women's collegiate program. And I ended up doing that for 4 years, side by side, bowling in the summer. And it was the perfect schedule because, as most people know, the collegiate season finishes and summer starts, and the women's tour started back up. So for me, it was ideal in that sense to be able to get the best of both worlds. And I think now you can definitely see a lot of women that bowl on the PWBA tour, they do coach collegiately. And I think that is because the two seasons just align up to where you have the opportunity to do both. You still have a full-time or possibly a part-time job, and then you still get to bowl against the best bowlers in the world. So I actually left SCAD in 2020 to pursue bowling full time, to kind of give it a go and see whether it was something that I could do. I had found so much joy in competing on the women's tour that I wanted to go and compete worldwide, right? At the time, there was a European bowling tour, there was a world bowling tour. So I had kind of been watching that throughout my 4 years whilst I'm at SCAD, thinking, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then I left SCAD and COVID happened, and there has not been a world bowling tour since. There is a European tours kind of coming back, but that's somewhat my story in a nutshell. I moved back down to Florida in 2020, so I am based in Lake Wales, but I try to go home a lot now that I have a bit more flexibility to travel. Yes, I want to bowl events all over, but I also want to be in England a lot too, so I try to find a balance between both Florida and England.
Yeah, and going to Lake Wales, so it's like almost being at home, like, right? Wales.
I think there's a bit more to do in Wales than there is in Lake Wales, but I like it. I mean, I train at Kegel. I'm very fortunate that I have the opportunity to actually be in this area and be there. You know, I like the small town vibe because I can just focus on bowling, and when I travel, I get to go and see things. So it's kind of nice to come home and be in the middle of nowhere when I'm in the US.
Yeah, I've noticed based on your social media mostly is you're there a lot at the training center.
Yeah.
So it seems like a pretty nice way to keep your game on point, living nearby and being able to go to probably the premier training center ever in the world. So it's a nice bonus being down there.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that I have the ability to train and practice there for the most part whenever I want. Which is why I'm there so much, right? Because you need to take advantage of it. And there's definitely times where I've taken it for granted. You know, I go to a bowling center elsewhere or perhaps in England and I'm like, oh, wow, like I really am spoiled being able to bowl at Kegel. I do like to still train at other places just because Kegel's a little bit of a fake bowling center in a way. It doesn't quite replicate everything that you see from a regular bowling center, and that's mainly just because of the lineage on the lanes. Yes, people bowl at Kegel, but you don't have a league that takes place every single night, so you don't kind of get the same beat up track area that you experience from a regular bowling center. So for me, either practicing elsewhere or making sure I bowl a lot of local tournaments at the weekend to prepare for the women's tour is extremely important, because I know that I'm not always going to see, mainly from a lane surface standpoint, what I see at Kegel.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We talk about that all the time here because a lot of our lane surfaces in our area in the Northeast are all worn in. So it's a unique thing to find one that is fresh. So like, for example, we bring it up on the show a lot, but here, for example, the lanes are just getting past 5 years old now, I think, or a couple of years older than that. So they're fresh compared to the houses that have 15 or 20-year-old lanes. And it is a major difference when you bowl on the same exact shot here versus anywhere else that's got a ton of friction in the heads because of all of that lineage like you were talking about.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, you know, you can go into all the details, but that's why when people say, how do I bowl on this pattern? Like the answer or the question back to that is really about, okay, well, what's your lane surface? Where are you bowling? Because that's going to dictate so much more than the 43 foot of oil that the paper says.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I basically will never practice on a shot that we are going to be facing up at a tournament, because it's just zero difference. There's zero similarities, I should say. You know, you've got topography and the friction, and it's just, and then it could be actual different lane beds. You could have, you know, Brunswick Pro Lane or Andeline or here like AMF. So yeah, way too many variables to even practice on the shot. You had brought up college bowling and that it wasn't very big over there or at all. And we had, I don't know if you're at all familiar, and I'm only saying that you might know them because they're English. But Sarah Hood and Carl Buckley, they're friends of ours. They're from up here. Well, they're now from up here. They moved into Jersey. So we had learned because they actually were on our show too. We had learned that they didn't have any school bowling at all. I don't even know if did you have high school bowling or whatever?
No,
that
does not exist. Yeah.
No. So we were like astonished to find out that there is no real, other than tournaments, competitive like school events. Do they have school sports in other areas like soccer or what have you?
They do, but I still would say it's very different. It's more of you have a physical education class and you play a specific sport with your classmates. And then if you want to be part of a club, then you perhaps play football or you play a sport as part of this club. And it's not necessarily always tied to the school. The school will have its own matches as well. But a lot of people, I think, join separate sports clubs that are normally actually part of a gym or somewhere else. And they actually do more events with that club than they would their high school.
I've actually been saying, like, this is exactly how high school sports should actually be, because all of those people that you're talking about that are doing the club sports, they're also doing the high school sports. So they're playing high school football and then Pop Warner football, and then they're playing high school baseball and also Babe Ruth baseball. It's like they're doing all of it all at once. So I've actually said the same exact thing, like, take the sports out of high school. This is a whole nother conversation anyway, and then do the club sports.
For me, like when I see high school and I see collegiate bowling, I'm like, wow, that would have been so cool to be a part of. But that's because I never had it. So for me, I had a Saturday morning youth league, and sometimes you would go with your league to some tournaments and you would have a doubles and a singles and an all events. And there were certain events that, you were a part of a team. But apart from that, the only opportunity you had for some form of team environment was if you made Team England or you perhaps had a random team tournament. So just the thought of being able to bowl with, 5-6 other people that like love the sport as much as I do and want to win, like that's a very cool concept that we never had.
Yeah. But I will follow that up with college bowling was one of the best experiences that I've ever had bowling, because it's just that, like you said, that team environment where everybody is just amped up and ready to rock. It's like that's probably the best part of college bowling was the team environment. It gets really loud in a college bowling center. It's wild.
I actually forgot. I was just in Chicago last weekend and I stopped by Stardust where they had a collegiate tournament. And I bowled it and I coached it. And I'm around collegiate bowlers a decent amount when I train at Kegel because the Weber program bowls out of there. But I was just in Chicago and I was kind of blown away with how loud it was. I just forgotten. Yeah.
It's crazy. All right, so let's talk about those PWBA updates that you had briefly mentioned. The biggest one being, I guess, the membership fee, or actually membership at all now, right? There's actually no real membership.
Correct.
What are your feelings on that? Is it kind of what I've been hearing? Like, it seems like everybody can bowl, which you could bowl, right? Like a PTQ or you could enter.
Yeah, so I had very positive feelings towards it. I didn't really have any negative thoughts. Nothing really changes in the sense of who could compete before can still compete. Nothing has changed from that standpoint, whether you're a collegiate bowler or a high school bowler or a professional, like you can still bowl. The only difference is that we are now not paying $300 and signing a contract with PWBA. So of course that does change things. It now changes how much our entry fee is. Our entry fee goes from being $300 as a member to now being $350. If you weren't a member, you were paying $400. So now you're paying $350, which perhaps I'm hoping might entice a few more people to bowl, because I know it's $50, but it's still $50. Like $350 still sounds a lot nicer than $400. So the hope is that we get some more members because of that. But if you win, you're still a title holder. That hasn't changed. You're still going to be eligible to be a part of the Hall of Fame. That hasn't changed. We're still going to have a truck to be able to drill bowling balls and transport equipment. That hasn't changed. So literally the only thing that has changed is this plastic card that said I was a PWBA member that I paid for. But we did have some, of course, like any contract you sign, there are legalities to it. And we don't have those anymore. We don't have the same rules or code of conduct that we previously had. So a lot of people wouldn't really know, but to be on this podcast, I would have had to have requested it. I would have had to have got approval from PWBA to say, yes, Verity, you're allowed to do that. Now I don't have to do that. So that's a big difference.
I was just going to say, back when we had Danielle on, I did have to go through the PWBA. But the men don't have that issue. They can do whatever the heck they want. Yeah, like Bill O'Neill just was like, yeah, I'll be on the show, whatever. Same thing with Stu and everyone else. Yeah, so it's I mean, obviously they're two different organizations, owned by two different organizations, so they have different rules. But it is weird to me anyway.
I think it would always be standardized.
Yeah, to have the USBC say yay or nay to a podcast interview. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but we had a lot of different things like that people would have no idea about. If I was to bowl an event that wasn't a PWBA event, that was going to either be on live stream or TV, I would have had to have got permission to bowl in that event. So it caused a lot of arguments throughout PWBA and in its members. There was, I think it started back in COVID timeframe when the PBA League tried to acquire the women and to have some women, which did end up happening. But it was a big deal because the women were going to be on Fox and PWBA had a contract with CBS. So obviously that all had to be approved through PWBA and USBC. Now, I'm very fortunate that everything I've always asked for has always been approved, right? It's not like I've submitted these requests and they say, no, Verity, you can't bowl that tournament, or no, you can't do that podcast. So that's great. It was just the fact that we had to do it.
Yeah.
And now we don't have to. So that creates a little bit more freedom. Same thing with social media. I'm sure you've probably seen some stuff on social media to where people say, oh, now we're free and now they can post whatever they want. We would get in trouble for certain posts before, which, I can argue was correct. I would never want anyone bad mouthing perhaps a bowling center or anything like that on social media. So I just think that we should have always been holding ourselves to a professional level. And I don't think that should change just because now we don't have a contract.
Although in the tournament rules, although I haven't seen all of the women's tournament rules, but at least in the USBC tournament rules, when you go to bowl the Masters or the US Open, they actually still have that in their playing rules where if you defame the USBC, you can be held accountable for it.
Right.
Who knows what that really means, but they can fine you, I guess, $100 or something.
Yeah, they can fine you and they will fine you. That has definitely been experienced on the women's tour. And I think it should be that way. The bowling centers go through a lot in order to host us. Why would you ever want to talk bad about them?
I think most people want to talk bad about the USBC, but
I think most people just have issues.
Well, that's
fair. That's very fair.
And people don't like change. And then when people go bad, it's also an issue. So you're going to take it out on everyone else but yourself.
Yeah. Yep. As we should. I don't think it's my fault anytime I throw a bowling ball. Anyway.
Strike every time you hit the pocket.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So that's a nice little viewpoint, I guess, of the new updates. So the other thing that I noticed, too, is the logos, too. So, like, when we go to bowl regional, we have to adhere to all the PBA rules of logo placement and which logos are registered. So, like, it sounds like, if I'm reading it right or understanding it right, let's say you've got a local restaurant or car dealership or something, you can now wear those logos on your jerseys as long as they conform to the sizes and whatever.
Yes, that's correct. So we somewhat could have done that before. It just had to be approved by PWBA. So our logo placement rules have always been a bit different to PBA, to where with PBA, the company actually has to pay PBA in order to basically have this logo on the shirt. Whereas with us, it wasn't that way. So if I did have an outside company, they weren't paying PWBA, but I had to get the approval from PWBA. So now we're allowed to have different pro shops on our shirt. Like, we have more flexibility with that. We do have to still wear the PWBA logo and the Bolt TV logo on our right sleeve. And of course, we can still only have product registered logos as well, right? So KR Strike Force, for example, this year isn't going to be product registered. So we still couldn't have that logo. So there's still some restrictions.
How about jerseys? Do those all still have to be registered with the PWBA?
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about the tour. Life on tour. You've got 8. I think, did I count that right? 8 stops this year.
We technically have 12 events, so we have 2 stops that are basically a 3-in-1.
Yes. So, do you have a tour roommate that you always share rooms with and stuff?
Yeah, so I generally travel with Daria and Diana. Those are the 2 girls that I tend to travel and room with. That might change depending. I know, like, Diana's mum's coming over for Queens, for example. So, like, they'll be by themselves and I'll just be with Daria. But it's normally the 3 of us. And we either do a mix of hotels or Airbnbs. We did a lot of Airbnbs last year, just based off price and location. And I like to have my own space and I like to have a kitchen.
Of course. I mean, who wants to eat at a restaurant every day? I do. But I still like to cook my own food.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone would if it didn't cost anything and you didn't put on any weight from it.
Yeah, right. But I think the cost is the biggest thing. I mean, you're paying $300 and something a tournament. You got to travel. You got to pay for the room. It's just a lot of expenses. And then to go pay to eat is a whole nother crazy concept too. So, which you still have to buy your groceries. But it's nice to be able to cook real food.
Groceries is sometimes the cost of groceries for a week is one dinner out.
So our buddy Bill Rice, who's in the chat now, he absolutely wanted to know what the details were of this Planet Fitness commercial that you were in and how it all started.
I've had a sponsorship with Planet Fitness for a while. They were fortunate enough to have me on as it was kind of before they did any form of like ambassador program, but it was an ambassador program. And then this year they actually changed to have what they call like Planet Fitness Friend, I think. So now anyone can apply for it. So like you guys could submit this application to Planet Fitness and have this opportunity. And basically, I think because I've been a part and working with them for so long, they wanted to use some of my videos. I didn't actually know that it was going to be on the commercial, so it was a surprise for me. They didn't tell me, they just asked for the videos, and of course, because I have a contract with them, like I can send them the videos. And then I was on the commercial and I was like, oh, that's cool.
It is pretty sweet. You see yourself on national television every once in a while, other than when you're bowling. But
exactly. But I won't have them on my jersey. That's not like a deal or anything that I have made with them. So maybe in the future, like I would love that. I think that would be fantastic for the sport if we could make that happen. But I have not had those conversations just yet.
So let's talk about equipment real quick. Obviously, I think you've been on Storm forever. But I know Weevil in the chat wants to know how you pick what equipment you prefer to use. And I think this person's really referring to like the reviews, because there's, like he says, there's 30 releases a year and all the staffers say every new ball is the best release ever. And he wants to know how you decide what's going to be your, other than your phase 2, because obviously you throw that every time. But what's your guiding light when it comes to balls?
You throw them a lot, right? It's pretty much as simple as that. Like, I have to have the understanding of what the bowling ball does, what part of the lane does it fit in, and what kind of oil patterns is it going to be good on. And the only way to figure that out is to bowl on different patterns and to go to tournaments and to test out the equipment. So yes, I can have an idea of what the bowling ball does when I first throw it. Of course, you drill it and you think, oh yeah, this one's clean or this one's early. But it still will then take me a decent amount of time to really figure out whether it's going to make my bag. And, you know, I do ball reviews myself, and it is so hard to come up with something brand new, right? To show the real differences in the bowling balls. And it's a struggle to do. In the end, the easiest thing to say is this one's clean and responsive, or this one's early and smooth, because that's all we have. You know, I think the hardest thing is trying to create all of this variation between bowling balls. I think they are a lot similar than we really want to give credit to. But that's why, I just have to throw them as much as possible. And normally the ones that are going to make my tournament bag, it shows that they're pretty good.
Yeah, Weevil was saying at $300 each, testing them is not the easiest option. That's a really big price for bowling ball. I guess they are like $250, $275 now. But yeah, well, I think what Verity is saying is you don't have to test them all. You just, like for me, what I know is I like, solid symmetricals to play in. I like solid ASIMs to play straight. And then, then as I break down, I use all symmetrical pearls. So it's like, if you know the kind of ball that you're leaning towards, maybe a pearl ASIM for me is not like my favorite thing. So that's why I think that's what you mean by practicing and finding out what the best look is for you.
Yeah, obviously for me it's different because I have a lot of bowling balls, so I do throw them all.
Sure.
But for just a league bowler who's looking to get new pieces of equipment, you have to look at what do you currently have, right? And you look at the 6-ball or maybe 4-ball arsenal that you have. How old is it? How much have you used it? Do I have symmetrical? Do I have asymmetrical? And then is there a gap? Do I need to replace a bowling ball because it's all I've thrown for the last 2 years? I don't think that everybody needs to always get the newest release. You definitely don't need to. It's more about forming your bag for who you are as a bowler. And that's why, it's great that you can watch all of the different ball reviews just to start to get an idea of what the bowling balls are. But in the end, you have to get what's most suited to you.
Yeah, I think the best thing for reviews, which is my opinion anyway, but you're just looking to see, all right, does this thing boomerang or is it slow rolling or in between? I don't think you have to know like, oh, it reads at 38 feet. And then, you know what I mean? Like you don't have to get into those finite details. You just look, does this guy throw it like me? And does it boomerang down lane or does it slow roll or you know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's what I use reviews for.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't be afraid also to just talk to your local PSO about what balls you are envisioning on getting, because they're gonna have a better idea than I'm not gonna say you, because there are some very smart bowlers out there that have a lot of knowledge, but they know their stuff and they're gonna be able to point you in the direction of a ball that's gonna best suit you for what you do. I mean, to be honest with you, a lot of the bowling balls that have been coming out, it doesn't really matter if it's a house shot. You can just throw it. It's gonna get there. It just depends on how long it's gonna work for,
especially because of the house shot.
So,
talk to us about your practice regimen. Obviously, you are at the training center a lot, but are you an everyday bowler? Are you a couple times a week? Do you take a lot of long breaks? Like, what's your regimen like?
I'm an everyday bowler, but lately I've been traveling so much that I definitely haven't had as much as a strict routine as I normally would have. Normally I'm like 100%. I'm there 5 days a week and then I bowl tournaments at the weekend. Like I used to be obsessed with practicing, but the last couple of years I've started traveling a lot more. So it's made it a lot harder to actually have that structure. So for me now it's about when I do go, it's just figuring out, okay, well, what am I trying to work on? So I normally evaluate my tour season every single year and I build my practices from that evaluation. So I figure out kind of what I need to work on, where my strengths and weaknesses are. And then I try and build the practice sessions that way to make sure that when I do practice, there's some purpose to it. Like if I just go and throw shots, like I don't actually find it very enjoyable to do that. And I don't improve that way. So I would much rather go and have this plan of what to do. I like practice sheets because they keep me on task. And if I don't have a practice sheet, then I'm at least like, okay, I'm spending 30 minutes on drills, then 30 minutes on X and then switch, vice versa. From a time frame standpoint, it just kind of depends on scheduling, but I normally want to bowl for at least 2 hours. And then I might either, bowl for 3 or 4 hours, or I might bowl for 2 hours, take a break, kind of like have lunch and then bowl a little bit more after that. Recently, I haven't, because I was traveling so much, I did take some time off. So right now I'm still kind of like getting back into bowling, which sounds weird because I never used to take breaks, but I have. So like this week, my practices have been a little bit shorter because I don't really want to completely, just go do a 4-hour session. If I do that, my thumb's going to rip open because my hand's just not used to being in the bowling ball. and I'm going to get so frustrated because it doesn't feel that great. So I'm actually doing like shorter practices, like an hour and, I mean, today I bowled for 2 hours, but like hour and a half to 2 hours, maybe with a couple more breaks in there than I'm normally used to.
And do you find like when you take a break, even if it's a couple of weeks or a month or whatever, do you find that when you get back, you're like, oh, I'm feeling good? Or is it the complete opposite where it's like everything's falling off the rails? I shouldn't say
it
that,
depends.
but like, you know what I mean?
I go through both. The longer the break I take, the more the bowling ball doesn't feel like mine. So when I take a lot of time off, I'm like, what is this? Like, how do I put my hand in this bowling ball? I'm going to drop it. Like, it feels awful. But it only takes one day. And then I'm like, oh, it's my bowling ball again.
Especially since you probably have to put like 5 pieces of tape in it because your thumb shrinks down or whatever. Grips are now way too big.
Yeah.
But yeah,
exactly.
I definitely get that.
But I also would say in the past, when I practice so much, like when I'm talking like 5 days a week for 3-4+ hours, the minute I took a day off, the next day did always feel awful. And I think that's because I always had such a perfectionist feel that I was trying to recreate because I practiced so much. It was like I never really knew what it felt like to bowl bad. So then when I took a day off, it would always feel so bad.
So about your actual bowling, where did that release come from? Was that created or is that all natural? Because your release is like super clean, one of a kind.
I want to say that it's created because when I was a kid, I used to back up the ball. Like I used to be I guess everyone goes through kind of different scenarios when they're really young, but like I did used to back it up. So that probably helped me, but I had to then learn not to do that. So I had some very good coaches growing up. And it's hard to remember back then. Like I never really remember working on my release, but I did used to do a lot of drills. So I am sure that I was obviously taught the correct way, but the release is something I'm still constantly working on. Like when I watch my release, I don't like it. So it's always quite interesting for me to hear that people like my release because I pick it apart. Like I don't think that I do it the correct way. I
mean, according to all of us,
elements
we
of
all
it,
suck, right? So like,
I mean, there's elements of it that are good. Don't get me wrong, but it's not textbook. It's not how I think it should be.
What textbook are you referring to? I've never seen said textbook.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't
because
either,
as we know, you can throw the ball any way you want now. Like look at I always forget his name, the twister, the guy that throws it with 2 hands, like literally 2 hands, not a 2-hander. Anthony would remember his name. I can't remember his name, but he throws it literally with 2 hands, spins it backwards, and now everybody's 2-handed. It's even becoming more popular on the women's tour. Like Tim Cagle, thank you, PSB. Yeah, so like there are so many different ways to throw the ball now, and now you got guys throwing backups. It's like, and I've seen you practice with backups. I think that keeps like that was your way of keeping your hand in that position, which by the way is a ridiculous hand position. It just lays on your fingers. It's just nuts. Like, but again, everybody hates their own bowling. Like thinks they got to change. Grass is always greener on the other side, right?
Sure.
Excuse me. So, actually, I thought we had a comment from Devin. She wanted to know where to go. She wanted to know if you bought any regionals. Last I knew, champions weren't allowed in the regionals. Is that still the case with all these new changes?
Yes, that's correct. So for the women's tour, if you have won a title, you cannot bowl on the regional tour. So I've actually never bowled a PWBA regional because before I won my titles, the rules were also different and I still couldn't bowl them. So I sometimes bowl the men's regionals, but most of the events that are around me in the South region are always during the women's tour.
Yeah, they want to be in the air conditioning. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Anthony Scaccia, assistant to the host. Very sorry, Verity, that he couldn't.
Nice to show
He was a
up.
plumber.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm always usually fashionably late. This is a little later than normal. But
It's okay. The podcast started late anyway.
Yeah. Oh, did it?
Well, we only did the intro twice.
Wow, way to go, guys. I'm not here, and things just you do.
That's
guys know
what
what
we
you're
said.
doing.
He's
You
usually
should tell
wearing
them
an
about the
apron.
music you introduced me to.
Oh yeah, I hit the wrong button.
He hit the sad clown instead of the applause. It's been absolute S show.
We should probably label those one of these days.
It's kind of sad you guys did that without me here. I mean, I am a very integral part. You know, I am the stirrer that mixes the drink here. You know, I really make sure these guys are doing their jobs. I'm sorry that they did that, and you know, they will be reprimanded later.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Don also wants to know if you envision an expansion of the PWA schedule in the future, and what would you consider the ideal number of events to be?
Right now, I don't envision one. I think that the number of events that we have right now will probably how it will be for the next few years. If I'm wrong on that, then I will be quite happy because, of course, I'm so down to have more events. But I just think that the way that the schedule is right now, especially how it fits in the summer, I think it's the ideal setup for women. We are not going to have a full year tour to where you can just be a full-time professional bowler. That's not the model, you know. Perhaps if somebody else bought the women's tour and we had this huge sponsor that came in and brought all of this money, then that would be possible. But I don't see it happening. So back in 2021, we had about 21 events because we didn't have any in COVID. And that was a lot. And it was fantastic. You know, you had so many more opportunities to win a title, but I don't see that happening in the near future. So.
Since you are tied in with the training center, the Keckle Training Center, I want to talk
Will
about...
you give Kyle a lesson? Because he's absolutely terrible.
I'm throwing the ball great right now. So anyway, I want to get your thought on lane patterns. And specifically speaking to volume. So I know that the women's tour is getting into the 30s now, and the men's tour just bowled on 37 mils. Like, we are racing for 40 mils, or maybe 50 someday as a standard lane pattern. What's your thought there? Are you pro more oil? Do you think that it would be more advantageous to reduce the oil to get more maybe angles or different types of bowling balls on the lane? Like, what's your thought on lane patterns? And what inside knowledge do you
just
have?
Want to bowl. I don't really care whether it's 28 or 31 or 37. I'm still going to bowl. I will say that it concerns me if we're going to get to over 40 plus mils, because I'm not sure how the back ends are going to handle it, more so from a fact of the mechanics of a pin deck, right? That's so much oil that I would worry that would actually impact the runnings of a machine more so than anything. I think from a bowling standpoint, the more volume that gets put out, the stronger the bowling balls are going to be made. So it's just going to keep kind of going as it is right now, right? The manufacturers can just make stronger bowling balls. So yeah.
We have a buddy that's like very into getting the volume down because...
You mean lower?
Yeah, volume lower, correct. So that it seems like when we've bowled on lower volume stuff, and I say lower meaning like 23, 25 mils, it's not super low, not like plastic bowling ball tournament low, but it seems like there's more places to play on the lane, and the lane pattern actually doesn't break down as much. So I'm with you. I'm like, it doesn't matter what's on the lane, I'm bowling. We're just talking. I guess we're just wondering more
think
like.
Within that, it's going to end up being more about the pattern structure anyway, because you could have 30 mils of oil, but where are you placing those 30 mils? In the end, that's going to end up making the difference, right? You can have 18 mils and it could actually be, you could be surprised at how heavy it still feels depending on everything else that's built into the pattern.
And then, we just happen to be talking about lane patterns and scoring and stuff. The men this week absolutely crushed the scoring record. You had what is his name? Matt Davis?
Michael Davis.
Davidson. Sorry,
Michael
my memory
Davidson.
doesn't work.
That's what it is. Michael Davidson.
Yep. So he got the new scoring record. Like, what are your thoughts there in the high scores here on the? I mean, maybe next week they'll be low. But and in bowling in general, like, do you have any kind of scoring thoughts?
Like scoring pace?
I mean, Cheetah's always been Cheetah's always been one of the highest scoring patterns for the guys. I would actually love to see the women bowl on it because I would be curious what our scoring pattern would be. Like when I see a 266 average or whatever, I'm just like, that genuinely seems insane to me. Like to be able to average that for so long, like you are not missing. I like it and I dislike it, right? I think it's nice to have a mix of events. I love super difficult events because the grind, I think, is more mentally taxing. And I think that sometimes the better bowlers rise throughout that, like a US Open, for example. But at the same time, it's also not easy to string strikes, right? There's still a mental process there of, okay, well, I've just had 8 in a row every single game. And yeah, I like both scoring paces, but I would normally pick the lower scoring pace.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see how high the scores are with how much oil is there. But I think we talked about it a few weeks ago. I mean, it's still 35 feet, I think.
30,
so,
yeah.
So, right around
Sorry,
35?
I was thinking 37 because of the volume of oil. But
yeah,
yes,
so I still think it's 35 feet. So, I mean, I think it's just a little bit crazy that there is 37 milliliters out there because you can probably make a pattern that's a little bit lower in volume and still play the gutter pretty well. It was interesting to see how far, how much they could really open up their angles and launch it at the gutter and still get the ball to recover.
They're literally playing 20 to 2.
Yeah, but you also still have to think, it's like you said, it's 35 foot, right? Well, the lane's 60, so you have so much lane there. So of course there's going to be friction. So of course you're going to be able to fling it at the gutter, and the volume probably is just helping the front part of the lane not break down as quickly. I mean, I don't know that bowling center, but I'm sure, like we spoke about earlier, most bowling centers now are getting beat up in the front part of the lane. So the volume, to be honest, if they're smart about it and they place it in the right place and they put more volume in the front, then it's probably only going to help the bowling center.
Yeah, that place does hook an absolute mile in the front part of the lane. I bowled there a few times. That's where they had the TV show where I think they put out like 44 feet, and everybody was up in arms because the guys were lofting the gutter extremely far. I think it was the one where the Kroll won. Tim Foy made the cut that for the TV show that year as well. That was the one. That's the same center. The fronts do hook a lot there. So putting out Cheetah, I think, kind of helped that center because, if they put out a longer pattern, I don't know how it would have been. I think last time I bowled there, it was 45 feet. I did not fare very well because the ball hooked kind of early on me and it kind of hit the oil and kind of backed off a little. So I think the Cheetah pattern was the perfect pattern for that building, plus the 37 mils for that building, I think was a fantastic pick, especially to start off the year. I don't think the front part got beat up too bad just because how much oil is there. So you're definitely right. Because of the way that center is built with how much friction there is, that 37 mils definitely probably helped the ball get down the lane a little bit better, which, 35 feet, you can throw it at the gutter anyways, but it probably definitely helped out that center. So it doesn't look as much, I'm going to call it a circus, as it did on the TV show a few years ago. Because a lot of guys, my father, did not enjoy that TV show.
Talk about a traditionalist, right?
He's very traditional.
Yeah, I mean, I put myself in that category too, but
it was interesting to watch though that show. So
all that to say, by the way, he's left-handed, so you can't take anything seriously.
Yeah, I'm left-handed. I'm going to tell you that I don't. If you don't know, I look at 3. I try to throw it as straight as I can. And I throw urethane a lot, so I'm not as good as Kyle or any of the righties out there.
You're left-handed. You have to throw urethane.
There's no such thing as burn for me. At least I'm the one lefty that'll admit it.
All right, so. You are like massive on social media. Well, how do you manage that day to day? Like, do you pay somebody to do that, or is it all you? Because it is like constant. And I don't know how anybody can get that kind of time.
Sometimes I wish I paid someone to do it because it's so overwhelming sometimes. Part of me enjoys it and part of me hates it. I've built it into a routine to where it's, for the most part, I'm making sure I take a picture of what I'm doing throughout the day, right? And then I'm going to upload it. But I think for me, it started more as it's a way to reach people. It's a way to reach bowling, and it's a way to grow the sport that costs me nothing. So from that standpoint, I think social media is fantastic. Like the fact that I can just post a picture on Facebook and however many people can see it, I think that's pretty special. So it's just become a part of, my routine really. And some days I don't want to do it. And some days I have, like this morning, I wanted to post a video to Instagram and I had zero kind of inspiration of what to post. So I just didn't. Whereas in the past, I used to be obsessed with like, I need to post something every single day. But now I want to produce good content as well, that's actually going to help people.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that you have the videos with the drills on it too, right? Because not only are you reaching your fans and stuff, but people who are trying to progress, if they're searching through social media for maybe a drill or something, and you're on there, and you're demonstrating how to do the drill properly. I don't know if you guys touched on this because I wasn't here for 30 minutes.
We talked about practice, but not the
drills are on there.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So the drills are on there, and it's fantastic because, a lot of times, when you're trying to coach somebody here too, like I can tell people, these are the people that are on social media that are doing drills, and you can watch how they do it. So that way you have another reference point instead of watching me do it or try to do it. So I think it's fantastic because you can reach a lot of people that way too. You can help people along the way that way as well.
You're a wealth of knowledge. I'm so glad you came back.
Yeah, you needed me. You're way too monotone here. You got to have a little bit of exuberation here. Come on. All right.
Excuse me. Sorry. So what is your favorite stop? Which place are you looking forward to most? Well, we get you a few more minutes here.
I don't actually have one. I think that I'm really looking forward to Green Bay because we have a very exciting finals for Green Bay. So that's going to be very different this year. But apart from that, I just want to bowl every single one. So I always get very excited for the majors just because they're a major. They hold a little bit more prestige. But yeah, I think everyone also kind of has its own story. We've been to Ohio a decent amount. I bowled really good in Waterloo the last time we went to Waterloo. So there's definitely some places that I get maybe a little bit more excited about. And that's normally based off a bowling center I've bowled good in.
What would be if you had to pick, what would be your favorite format for a tournament? If you don't have a favorite tournament, what's your favorite type of format? Qualifying and finals.
Oh, sometimes I feel like I'm so basic. I just don't have favorites.
Okay.
I like a lot of games of qualifying, and I think I like it when pins carry forward, but I also very much enjoy match play. I like match play with bonus pins. I also enjoy double elimination because if you get knocked out, you still have an opportunity. So I feel like if you
elimination should not exist except for the finals.
Okay.
If you could combine Queens and US Open together.
Queens and US Open.
Having I'm trying to think. Wait a minute. Not the team portion and stuff. You're talking about
team.
Good. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of what I'm thinking
Queens has 5 days of qualifying, and then it has double elimination, whereas US Open still has the qualifying, but it has qualifying on different patterns, and it has more games, and then it goes to match play later on with bonus pins.
I was thinking of the women's tournament.
Some combination.
That's why I was thinking teams. I was thinking of the women's tournament that they have in Reno.
Oh no, definitely not.
Yep.
Women's championships.
So Bill wants to know: are there more women trying the two-handed technique? I know there's one that pops up on Instagram all the time from Sweden. She throws the ball really good.
She throws the ball really good. She's actually coming over to bowl the women's tour this year. She's going to bowl the full tour. She's bowled a couple of events in the past, so I'm excited to see her bowl a whole season. She is very good. There are some up-and-coming collegiate bowlers who haven't graduated yet, so whether or not they're going to try some events this year, I don't know. But I think within the next 5 years, we're definitely going to see a more consistent presence than we do right now. There's definitely not any older women who are two-handed. It's definitely all of the younger generation, so it's just going to take a while for them to come through. And then internationally, same, they're still younger, so they're probably just not made their way here yet.
Yeah, we the girl who was on the Bowlers Journal this month, Anna Antony, the two-hander, she was on the Bowlers Journal. We bowled against her at the Megabucks event.
Oh yeah,
she's 14 or 15 years old, and she absolutely smoked everybody. She was the leader in her division. I think she led the whole tournament, and she's 14 years old. It's absolutely incredible. I think she's a junior gold champion too, possibly. I know she's had a lot of success there as well. It's crazy to watch her bowl because you're really? You're watching her she doesn't throw it any harder than me. Is she going to strike more than me? And she struck a mound more than I did. And I was like, holy crap. And I remember we did a seminar, and she was there. And they're like, all right, Anthony, just try to tell him, maybe give him a few pointers as you go down there. So then I go to this pair, and there's these 4 girls. And they're from Connecticut. They were fantastic. And I looked at Bill O'Neill and I said, there's nothing I'm going to tell these girls. I'm just going to watch, say, you guys are fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing. And then I'm just going to go to the next break because they were that good. And it was her. She was there.
Yeah.
And she was like 12 or 11. And she was still like, I was like, wow, like she's incredible.
Yeah.
So she's on Bull Run. It is going to come, I think.
200. Yeah.
Yeah. 200 for the
100%.
women's side. Yeah. It's going to be crazy.
I'm watching our nephew, and he just started like 4 months ago and puts 2 hands on it, and he's already averaging 200. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah. We're talking about women though, Kyle.
I know. What I'm saying is the two-handed phenomenon.
Yeah. I think it's awesome for the sport. I do like how the it's transitioning over the women now. I think it's going to be crazy to watch. And that girl from Sweden, she comes over. She's fantastic too. It's going to be pretty cool to see her on the tour with everybody else.
I don't know how to say this person's name. I'm going to say O-Bike Fix. Wants to know who your favorite women's player is, and he enjoys all of your content.
She's always been my kind of like inspiration, I would say. Not always. I didn't follow her when I was really young, but once I moved to the US, she was definitely the one that I thought, oh, okay, like she's a power player. She isn't as straight as a lot of the other women. And I always looked up to her. And she's just lovely. Like I have so much enjoyment when I cross with her on the lanes because she just holds herself in such a fantastic way. And if you ever have a question about bowling, like you're competing against her, but she's always so willing to chat about bowling. And I think that she also sees the lanes in a very similar way. Like we often have an opportunity to kind of talk about bowling balls or what's going on the lane. And I just always understand her.
She's absolutely fantastic on TV too, as an announcer.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. And my wife did say that she is awesome. Like she's a great advocate, but like she can talk to like the higher ups. And she said that she was fantastic and had great ideas and stuff like that as the PWBA was moving forward. I think that was a while ago, 2017. I think
when
my
they were
wife
up
bowled.
here, when they were up in Glens Falls.
No. My Janelle bowled down in Florida and Tennessee, Louisville and Tennessee, a few years back, if you remember.
Louisville and Tennessee.
No, Louisville and Florida. My fault. I'm not good. All right. You know
we
what,
were
guys?
in Florida in 2017 and
Yes.
2021.
I think it was 2017. She bowled. It was Orlando, right?
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yes. We did. Orlando was. Yeah,
How-
maybe
how could
2018.
anybody
Anyway,
ever
that
remember?
time frame because we've bowled in Tampa and Orlando.
My memory is so bad. I could bowl the New Year's Day tournament and not be able to tell you what date that is.
Yeah, I know.
That's how bad my brain.
That's why I ask you when you're going to pick me up, and you say for what? Because you never remember. But yeah, no. I think that was the time when Janelle went and bowled, and yeah, I think she said Kelly was fantastic, absolutely phenomenal. And I do, like I said, I love her on TV. I think she explains things really well to the audience at hand. I think she should be on more, even for the men.
Yeah, why not?
I think she's fantastic.
When she was up here bowling, like you could just watch. She absolutely destroyed them too. Like I know she made the finals at least, but yeah, she just ran them over. She's super good. She can play every part of the lane too. Like I mean, a lot of pros can, but
She's good. She's very good.
Yeah. Devin says that she crossed with Kelly at the U.S. Open in 2011 in Texas and was super scared to ask her for an autograph.
I mean, I would be too. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Starstruck.
The presence of greatness.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All right, so we just got a couple minutes here, so we'll just say thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Did you guys ask about anything about when she came over to America?
Yeah, we covered that whole thing.
I'm
All
just
right, buddy?
making sure.
You missed 30 minutes of the show.
Listen, I am just covering the O's and dotting my T's. All right, I'm making sure that you guys get
You
everything under
should've-
control.
Just told him to go back and watch it.
Wow.
He won't. He has no dedication to this podcast.
I absolutely do. I need to do more for these people.
Shoot, now I forgot what I was going to say. Thanks a lot for interrupting me.
You're welcome. It's my job.
I know
You were
now.
saying thank you.
Tell everybody website and Instagram and all that stuff, where to find you and support you and all that stuff.
Verity Crawley, pretty much everywhere. Decently easy to find, I would say. I do have a website as well, but I use my Patreon a lot more than I use my website. But you can also find that on the website if you can't find that page. So.
Very much appreciated. Good luck this year on the tour.
Thank you.
We hope to see you a lot on stream and television, and winning more titles.
Yes, we're definitely going to try. So thanks for having me on.
All right, good luck
Thank
and have
you.
a great one.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day. All right, Kyle.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Verity Crawley on the show. You got to ask 2 questions.
I got in there a little bit. Yeah, I tried my best. I don't know what happened in the snack bar, but there was water everywhere.
That is not good.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's a problemo. as they say.
Wasn't too bad, but I just want to make sure it didn't leak any further. With, you know how Jack gets.
I won't say anything.
No, we don't. We already know how it all is. We know how it
been
goes.
bad.
Could have been worse. So it wasn't too bad.
So we didn't get to cover what was going on this week and how we bowled and whatnot.
You want
And
to
you
talk
got your
to me?
doubles tournament going on too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that real quick before we go.
What about doubles?
Just that you got a couple of squads left. You got 2 weekends left.
Yeah, we got 2 weekends left. We have like 120 teams so far. I think leaders 1466, 6 games. Baker's doubles, 90% handicap at 225. Get your averages, your 2 teammates together, divided by 2, round up. Just kind of simple. We're bowling on Chromium, so the scores it's been pretty good. Scores were a little high the first day, but it seems like it's held pretty well. Chromium.
Pattern is incredibly hittable, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, when you get to Baker's, though, you got to remember it's a little bit harder. You got to strike when your partner strikes. So, what did I miss?
He said that it was
an honor to speak with you because you are the back-to-back Super Bowl doubles champ. Well, that's great job. You beat up on me every year.
Yeah,
But
you try.
we've got that going, so that's got another 2 weeks to go. So usually we were right around 200 plus teams. Last year we had 300 plus. So we'll see how the last few weeks go. And then you want to know how I bowled?
No, I don't care how you bowl. You're a chump.
I mean, I did have a lot last week, so I don't want to brag, because I beat you by like 200.
I didn't.
First of all, I think
I
by
beat Kyle, though.
100,
What'd you shoot?
999.
Beat you by
Oh
100.
no, you beat me by 90. But
Mhm.
yeah, I had a good look. All right.
Yeah, well, this week I cracked your ball in half, so we'll see how it rolls. I took a flathead to it, little hole in it, bing, bang, boom.
You're that scared of me?
separated. Yeah, I got to bowl you this week.
Oh, you guys are bowling, huh?
No, we're
No.
actually not. I just want to throw
I'm
it in
bowling
there.
Chad tonight.
Yeah, I'm not bowling him.
You're a bum.
I just want to see what would happen.
All right, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell to get alerts from the channel. We want to once again say thank you to Verity Crawley for coming on tonight. And if you can't watch live on Facebook and YouTube, you can always download and listen via your favorite podcast service. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review or a thumbs up or a heart symbol or however you can make us shared. We had a huge bump in our ratings this week, probably because the Verity announcement. But keep sharing with your friends and tell them that you watch or listen to the best bowling podcast in the world.
Self-proclaimed.
I thought that was implied. All right. So thank you to Jack Scaccia, proprietor of Town and Country Lanes. Austin, great show tonight. Thanks for carrying it all night long since we had
I didn't say a word.
Sorry.
a third of the crew missing.
I was shaking my head yes because she has very valid points.
Yeah. And thank you to Anthony. Good show. I'm not giving you a high five this week.
You don't have to. It was a very short-lived show this week. I was debating coming back in because you guys seem like you're on a roll because I did kind of watch a little bit.
Anthony texted me and said, "Hey,
How's
I'm
the flow
done.
going?
Should I come in, or is it the show going good?"
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that you guys were in a good flow. I did watch a little bit from the bar just to, right before just to see what was going on. And I was like, all right, everything looks good. I was going to come in. I don't remember when, but then I was like, okay. My mom was like, there's a little bit more water there. I was like, we'll double check. So I got on the step stool.
The life of the bowling alley.
It's great.
All right. Thank you to my family, Stephanie, Zach, and Ethan. We will see you all next week. This is Down Lane Podcast.